Welcome to Grab Overload in this week's installment of the Tony Tech Topics. We've got some more news to go through. It doesn't seem to stop every week, but this one we're going to start out with AMD first, and they have a new driver update for the chipset drivers on Windows 10 and Windows 11 if you're on a Ryzen system. Now this is in conjunction with a security flaw with the TPM Pluton security flaw, and this is one that you're going to want to go and get. So I believe that there might have been a BIOS update too that's coming out for that, but they have these drivers out. It goes all the way to the A320 boards on up. So even if you're on Threadripper, TRX40, TRX50, TRX80, TRX or yeah, well WRX80, WRX90. You have the 370 all the way up to the 870 motherboards, and the B350s to the B650s. So basically A, B, X Threadripper boards, yeah, you're going to need to get an update here. And this is just, the security side of things that you constantly have to update. But it is one nonetheless that people should be aware of, and to make sure that they get the updates to, because this is a major flaw in these processors. This TPM vulnerability is essential. It was AMD tracked as well for the CVE, and it's an important patch to get. So you update your BIOS. I had another article here that we're blending into this one, because as the chipset drivers, if you have AMD install manager there as well, you will get this right away. And so that's, or as soon as it checks, which is a good thing. I have a couple systems that I saw that this was already updated on, and you'll be good to go there for the chipset side. But if you're looking for the BIOS update that goes along with this, you will have to continue to download that and then plug that USB in and update it, or however you want to update that as well. So be aware of that, and hopefully we're mitigating more bugs that are out there, because that's what continues to happen, is the mitigation of bugs. Now AMD did talk a little bit about the joint venture that they're having with Microsoft for the next generation of Xboxes, and that deal was, or was it first announced by Microsoft. Sarah Bond did that. I did a video on what Sarah Bond was talking about, but AMD with Lisa Su did the same thing. Kind of important if Lisa Su is putting it out there, and she's being the one that is driving this. Now, I do think that there could be a multitude of different things that this means. Now you have to realize that Nvidia is creating a chip. We've seen some leaks of that with MediaTek and their GPU on there, so I'm sure that at some point they want to enter the market here as well, and get into the, maybe not just so much the gaming stuff, but get a chip out there basically to compete with AMD and Intel of all-in-one SoC, that you don't need to have another CPU in there. You don't need to have that extra stuff. You can just drop in Nvidia's solution and you're off to the races. Kind of what AMD is trying to do too, with just dropping in their solution, and then you're off to the races. So this is one thing where, I was listening to Brad Sams, and he was saying, think of it that even maybe it could be a yearly cadence where you get a new chip every year, and that was kind of interesting. That would be another option. I was thinking it was going to be more of a family of chips, and then that you're going to have different devices across the spectrum. And so let's say you have more of a console or more of a desktop chip, and then you have more of a mobile chip that can play, in handhelds, and you have that spectrum. And I do think that at some point Microsoft's going to want to see maybe AMD deliver that ARM chip with their graphics and see how that works. I actually think that at some point Microsoft will want to go that direction. I don't know if it'll be Qualcomm, but I think that if they're signing a deal for multi-year deal, that this could be where AMD's already worked on an ARM chip, they're working on it again. They might have a solution there for what Microsoft wants. Plus, then you have x86 if you need it, and they're going to create a family. We'll see what it all means, but it's pretty important and pretty crucial with the competition as it starts to heat up of what direction it's going to go to. So jumping in, it's rumored that AMD is going to have out a 9600 X3D. This is interesting. I like X3D chips. I think that's a good entry point to the X3D. Be really interesting here because we're seeing, you know, some of the Zen 6 stuff appear in rumors now. So you have a, let's say you know you want to game a little bit, but you know the 9600 X3D is a great price to performance. This may be a great option to be like, you know what, I'm jumping in. I'm going to start using this X3D chip, get some good gaming in it, but my plan is to upgrade within a year or so. This may be a great option for you to then get into that Zen 6 architecture, but you already have the board and everything else, memory, etc. So all you have to do is plug in that new chip or upgrade the BIOS, plug in the new chip, and you're off to the races. I think it's a really good move by AMD to get some of these cheaper chips out. I know it can be hard at times to get the cheaper chips out, but I really hope that they continue to do that, and we'll see what they do next generation, right? If they're going to 12 core CCDs, well, that I think will actually help gaming to make gaming take another step. Probably, you know, where 6 cores can still get you by, it might then start within the next year and a half to 2 years. Games might be going just to strictly to 8 cores or more, and that would be kind of interesting to see where 6 cores leave. Are you going to cut down that 12 core CCD to 6 cores and make that your low end, you know, like Ryzen 3 or something? At some point, I'm sure these lower end core counts of, you know, 4 cores are going to go away, and 4 cores or less, and you're just going to have either these hybrid options, or you're going to have like cut down, you know, 6 cores, and that's going to be it. So going to be interesting to see, but I'm excited to see what Zen 6 can bring here, and hopefully Nova Lake can compete with that as well. They got to make up some ground, but it will be interesting. Now, I was on video cards and I saw this, and it was kind of interesting. Is that, you know, right now FSR4 is only on the 9000 series, but a modder was able to get it working on the 7000 series. So it's it I don't know how great it is overall, right? This modder was able to, you know, work a little bit to get this frame rate here, you know, and have a performance hit around 20 to 30%. But you get some benefits with it, right? With FSR4 of how AMD has improved the models and stuff, and so, you know, it doesn't have all the hardware, all the AI stuff. There's something there that I'm just like, you know what, this is interesting, but until AMD comes out with it officially, it's one of those things that is in the interesting category for me, because it's not something I want to go tinker with at this time to see how it will all perform. So the interesting little tidbit of news of pricing this week of GPUs is the 9060 video cards had this as well. 9060 XT 16 gig was cheaper than the 8 gig in Poland. So that was, while this is so confusing with these different gigabytes, that was one where you probably want to go pick that up pretty quick if that is something you were interested in. So I don't know how it got cheaper. Nobody's buying it. But, you know, the graphics card's only been out for a couple weeks here, and dropping a lower than the 8 gigabyte model is, well, is that AMD also, well, I guess it's only that region, it's not around the world, but is that saying, hey, we messed up here? Maybe, I don't know. We should have never came out with the 8 gig. But some rumors on the Radeon GPU side is that HDMI 2.2 80 gigabits per second bandwidth will be on UDNA, RDNA 5, whatever you want to call it right now. So, interesting little tidbit here. It's not going to be the full 96 gigabits that is on the HDMI, but HDMI 2.2, and maybe that's just because that hardware that's there is now readily available, and they're starting to phase out that 2.1 or 2.1B, etc. So that's one of those where, okay, interesting tidbit. you take it down where you can, but those are some things that you keep in mind. Now, we do. Last week I did talk about the 256 gigs of RAM on an AMD motherboard. This week, I think that was Asus. MSI has it this week. I'm guessing it's coming to all motherboards here, and just something to keep your eye on, because if you're looking for more RAM, this is one where you can easily uh, upgrade and get more RAM too. So this is yeah, you just get more RAM, right? So this is one where if you're thinking about where, if you want HDT, if you don't need the quad channel and don't need 512 gigs, a terabyte, you're sitting on a desktop platform now with AMD going to, let's say, 24 cores, maybe even 32 in the future, Zen 7. I don't know if it's on the same board or if it's a different board or motherboard platform. You have Intel, where Nova Lake's been rumored for 52 cores. All of a sudden, your desktop variants are becoming uh, high-end desktops just by able to put all these cores in. I think it's pretty cool. Do you eliminate the HDT? I don't know, because it still has a quad channel, but it does put an interesting aspect into how you're looking at computers these days, and having a platform that is actually very scalable. If Intel's able to hit that 52 cores and have good performance throughout, a good single core, etc., you're thinking that you could maybe get something down into the low end. Let's say with their E cores, it'll probably be around 16 or 20 cores, and then on up to the 52. You have something that the whole entire platform, same with AMD, if they're down to 6 going up to 24 for now, maybe 32 in the future. That's a scalable platform across many different things. The RAM there is, it gets denser. Maybe you're going up to 384, 512, someplace in there, and all of a sudden it makes a lot of sense where people are going, this is this is this is reasonable. I don't need anything more than this. Dual channel is enough, and we have a really interesting market in the DIY segment, in the DIY platforms that are supplied by Intel and AMD. I think it's a really good move by them to increase core counts. I like that natural increase of core counts. I'm sure once we get up to, these next set of high core counts, we're probably going to be sitting back a little bit, and I'm wondering where the next innovation is, right? We went for clock speeds for a while. Granted, we're still getting clock speeds improvement, but remember, it was the up to 10 gigahertz at some point. What was that? Maximum PC, right? Had that article back in the day. And then, so it was clock speeds, and then you went to cores, and now we finally started getting this core war heated up, and we're getting up there. And then the next thing is going to be, I'm thinking maybe cache or something like that. It's going to be on the CPUs, and that's going to heat up because Intel's going to have the 3D cache there. I'm sure we're going to see some innovation there. Stacking, chiplets, that sort of thing might heat up of different compute engines on the CPU. But there's going to be a next step, and I think at some point, like I wanted to see AMD, I thought that their processors needed to do core counts. If you look at some of my previous videos, increase those, and now it looks like we're kind of getting there for this. I did mention that TPM fix, and that for the new Aegis code there. There's a Zen 5 without graphics. It's 9700F, sub $250, pretty good price there. So is that all for my AMD side of things? I talked about the roadmap that AMD had. I think that is done there. I think we're now on to Nvidia. I kind of messed up some of my articles here, but Nvidia is coming, and they had a new driver, right? Nvidia keeps getting out some new drivers. One thing I did want to mention is that where was this? Yeah, I thought Nvidia had a new driver. Yeah, they did. I did close it, but Jay's 2 cents did have a video on some of the performance. If you're on an Intel system, 1400, 1300 system, checked out his latest video there about the switch he had to do to get his performance up, because he was doing some trying to be on the leaderboards for, oh, I'm blanking on it, 3D Mark, and So he came down and he was just like, this is not working out, and he was able to figure out the setting. I'd say that, if you're on those platforms, you should definitely do that. Now, the driver update, a lot of bug fixes, a lot of general bugs, gaming bugs. They did a good job here, and there is a few known issues, but I'm glad Nvidia is still cleaning up their driver, getting that running, and continue to be giving us some of the value there as well. Not much on Nvidia's news overall, right? They didn't really have too much AI stuff here as well. So there's more AMD and Intel stuff this week, just so happens to be. And Intel Nova Lake, as we mentioned, has up to 52 cores. It looks like this is the Nova Lake stuff. I really hope that they hit it. I think that they're going to have some good multi-core stuff, right? Because that's, if you're going up to 52 cores, you're banking a multi-core. I am going to test out here probably the 7800X3D, just so I have it here. A friend went up to a 9800X3D, so I have the 7800X, and maybe upgrade my computer here, just to my main rig, and see how that performs just in my tasks, especially writing code, and then also editing these videos and stuff, and gaming, etc. It's gonna be great for gaming, but it's the other stuff that's demands a lot of cores a lot of time, right? I have a 24 core Threadripper, which has been working great, and I really like it, but it's one of those things where I'm trying to gauge how many cores I need for the next generation, because I don't know if I need the full like 32 or 52 cores. That's getting up there, right? You have a lot of E cores, 32 on these, and then 16 P cores, and their main lineup is going to be 8 P cores on the Ultra 5. Really, that's probably going to be the sweet spot there for gaming, is that Ultra 5 with 8 P cores, and then you have that Ultra 7 with 14. If games start using, let's say, up to 12 cores, that 14 core P core might be a really good option overall. So, they also have these low power E cores as well, and not just the E cores. So Intel's cooking up some stuff over there, having multi-gen stuff in there. We'll see where it all leads to, but uh, Intel, I really hope they come back swinging, because it's been one of those times where you're not too, you're disappointed, I would say. That's how we're going to put it. We're disappointed at where they are currently, and I really hope that they kind of get back. But that was really was that the only Intel story I had this week? And that was from WCCF Tech, and Video Cards had that core count thing, or core count thing, and that's all I had there for Intel too. Really light week on those two, but we can talk about some gaming stuff. The fun stuff, the auxiliary stuff. Here the PCI 5.0 is SSDs, right? We talked about 7 coming out, and my hunch is that maybe you won't see 7 in like consumer side stuff, or we won't see 6, but we'll go right to 7. And they were saying here in this article that um, that a lot of the Silicon Motion said that PCI 6.0 SSDs won't arrive until 2030. At that point, do you just jump up to 7? I don't know how all the current developments going on the actual implementation on boards, and then SSDs, but do you just jump to that for your new SSD controllers and you skip 6 completely? That could be a possibility. PCI, they're saying, is good enough for the current market. This is where you start thinking about, okay, what exactly is going to happen here, because it is one of those things where maybe they just say, you know what, we're not doing this, we're done with it, and we'll just jump to that latest one when that hits, and then we don't have to implement for each one. We've seen this before, kind of with some motherboards where they've jumped generations in PCI Express, and it makes sense. Why go to the middle one if your boards are still on 5, and then all of a sudden 7, let's say 8's out, and you're just like, you know what? Everything price-wise, they're close enough, and there's no need to go through this. So we'll see how that all goes here and in the future. But if you're buying a PC right now, you're not waiting for that anyway. So Windows 11 is getting adaptive power savings. Well, finally, I mean, the, somebody found this, Phantom of Earth found this in the latest dev builds. This should have been something that they they've had for a while, in my opinion. I don't know why it hasn't happened. They have, where they already put processes suspended and everything else. If they can get better battery life out of Windows through adaptive stuff and everything else, it'll benefit, the ARM side and everything. But this is something I think Windows has needed for a while. It makes no sense that they haven't got this yet, especially with all the people working on Windows. You have the AI side of things where you probably could even adapt it based upon AI. Of course, I wouldn't start there, but maybe Microsoft is going to go there. So we also saw Microsoft throw in, want to compete with Apple here on getting that glassy look back again, but they only did it with sound, not the full look of the OS. And they put in startup sounds from Vista. You know what? Why don't you just throw in, hey, here's the Windows 11 startup sound, and let you put all the old startup sounds in there. Let people select the startup sound. That can be an option. I don't see why not. I don't think that the sounds are going to take up that much space. With the size of SSDs now and everything else, and how cheap everything has gotten in the storage realm, I don't think we have to worry that the sound is going to take up too much space. There's other bloat in Windows that they could get rid of first, and that they add on that's worthless, that they could just add in sounds and people could have fun with it and select different sounds if they wanted to. It's one of those things where you're just like, Microsoft, just jump over. You could have some other stuff here and have fun with it, but we'll see. So we'll see what they do. Now, Nothing phone. It's one of the ones that I am looking for or looking at to get once I upgrade my phone. My wife happens to have a little cracked screen finally. I don't know how that happened, but probably something I have to replace there as well. But Carl Pea, I think that's how I pronounce it, from Nothing. He said that they acquired the Essential name only. They only cared about the name. We had Essential, right? That was a phone for a while, and yeah, it's you want to put that. They have the Phone 3 coming out. I was listening to an interview with him, and he had an interesting just view. He goes, "Why do you have to always release flagship first and then the A phone? Kind of like Google does. They did the A phone too, right, with the 3A. Why is there all these set rules? Why do you have to have a phone out every single year?" And I started thinking about that, and it's true. Man, this phone's getting up there. It's a OnePlus 9, and so it worked well, and it's fine. Well, my wife's just showing its age by the breaking of the screen, but it's one of those things of, what, it has a phone is working. There's not a huge jump in performance and jump in technology in the phone, cameras, etc. It works great. Why do you have to come out with one every year? You just roll that one out for 2.5 years, 18 months to 2.5 years, and then that's when the next one comes out. You have the A in the midpoint, and then you jump, maybe difference in accessories around it, and that kind of makes more sense to me than just every single year rolling out another design just to roll out another design. Um, if that's needed for you to get sales, maybe, but it somewhat doesn't make much sense there as well. So I kind of get his point. You got to release it in whatever makes sense and whatever is available instead of just saying I'm releasing to release. So jump over more just purely on the gaming side finally here is that Steam is adding in its overlay update here, and it's going to have more of being able to handle DLSS frame generation stuff in the overlay. Nice improvement there from Steam. I think that they do a good job overall. Steam, a lot of games are on Steam, so you add another feature in that maybe somebody wants to use. Maybe somebody will buy their games from there instead. So Borderlands 4. This game is coming out. A friend really excited. He already pre-ordered it, and there may be some issues here if you run on 6 cores. The minimum PC spec requirements are 8 cores, 16 gigs of RAM, 8 gigs of VRAM. If you want to run it on recommended, you're going to need more than 8 cores, 32 gigs of RAM, and 12 gigs of VRAM on your GPU. Something to note, I've been waiting. The good thing about Borderlands 4 is that the price is still like $70 instead of 80. That did not rise right now, but I will say this, the extra 12 gigs of VRAM, the 32 gigs of RAM, 8 over cores, starting to show where we talked earlier that, maybe we're getting to maybe a 12 core CCD is going to be really good for gaming, and games will go there. And this may just be one extra hint to it, where that 9800 X3D will still game well. But if you really want to hit, and get all the threads and everything else running well, you're going to need that 12 core. Something to watch as we move through in the next about 2 years. I think it'll take for a lot of games to hit there. And then we had a game in Ark Survival, which forced frame generation was enabled for Radeon users. I was reading this. This is just, come on, let's not do this. Let's have native stuff first and then go from there. But yeah, here we are. I'm just disappointed in some of this stuff. Why are we throwing all this around? But we are. So force enabling things. Let the game run, yeah, it shouldn't be force enabled. Is what I'm getting at here. So Warner Brothers has restructured their game divisions. So there's going to be 4 major franchises that they are focusing on here. WCCF Tech had this. The 4 franchises are going to be DC Universe, Mortal Kombat, Game of Thrones, and Harry Potter. We'll see. The last Harry Potter game did really well. So hopefully this puts them on to a list of just going through and churning out some good games here. They're restructuring. We'll see. Yeah, I haven't. I know my brother wanted to play the Harry Potter game. He has not. He buys or he gets a lot of the Epic free games. He still wants a gaming rig, but we have not built that yet. Maybe we'll build that sometime in the future. Put that on the channel too. As well. So next gen Xbox is supposed to have backwards compatibility. Well, I expected this, right? They're saying at the hardware level, but at some point, depending upon where the games are, AMD and Microsoft just went through and signed a deal, right? So this was a little bit before that deal, I believe. So I expect that both parties here kind of know the requirements for what is needed for backwards compatibility. If they can hit this and it's just at the hardware level because of just how everything runs, this will be great for users. I think at some point Microsoft does have to think about it and say, you know what, we're just creating PCs here. They did the handheld, they work with the Xbox team, they don't start the desktop, save 2 gigs of RAM, go right into Xbox mode, works really well. I think those are all benefits that need to be rolled into the desktop. You go into a gaming mode, you save that memory, you get better performance. These are all good things that they should bring here, but at what point do you start going, you know what, there's some of these Xbox games that we have not converted to PC. We know that they can run on a PC, maybe not well in some instance, but Halo 5 is one instance where that has not been converted over to PC yet. Why don't we go through and allow people to play that? It may not be perfect. They understand that, but let's say it's not been converted yet. You have to play with controller. You have to be in this Xbox mode in order to play it. I think that is a great direction to go on, and if you're an Xbox fan, I think that makes a huge opportunity for you to be like, you know what, this makes a lot of sense. I'm excited about this. So we'll see about where this is and where this goes, but I really want to see some updates here. on the Xbox side of kind of where they're going. I think in 2026 we'll finally get there, but it is one of those things that I've been watching, and I think I'm going to go to a gaming PC as my media center area instead of the Xbox, just because I think that you can build something pretty nice, have some upgradability, and be you know, be something that's not just a box there, depending upon how Microsoft goes. I really want to see AMD and Microsoft release some of these chips out and ITX boards just for us to use. It'd be great if they're socketed. I don't think they would be, but if they're socketed, you can swap them in and out, do an upgrade every year. I think that while that is a niche, that could be a niche where people are buying those chips in and just swapping out, the GP, you got your SoC, GPU, CPU all connected. Oh, I'm swapping it out, MPU, I'm getting better performance. That may be an option where people, in there get excited about Xbox and bring some more excitement into it. That's the one where the DIY side could be, especially if you're using this as just a Windows box that you can then play games on if Microsoft goes that route. So with that, that's all we have this week. We ran a little bit long again. I keep saying that. Maybe this is going to be the normal time, but I want to thank you so much for supporting and watching Gray Overload. I really do appreciate it. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, watching on my videos, as that really does help out the channel. Until next time, God bless.